Good afternoon, lady.
Good afternoon, David.
Thank you so much that you could join us this afternoon for the ACAT Above the Rest Interview Skills and CV Writing webinar. We are happy to host you as KPMG East Africa. And I'm sure that you will find this particular webinar quite insightful and quite informative, especially as you continue to prepare to enter into the job market. So with us this afternoon, I'd like to just go through a few house rules. This is to the speakers and the panelists. All mics are muted upon entry. All videos have also been disabled, except for those of the presenters and the panelists, in order to minimize distractions. Kindly put off your mobile phones in silent mode and mute your microphones when you're not speaking. To the attendees, once again, welcome to this webinar, and we are happy that you've joined us from wherever you are joining us from across East Africa. Please note that this session is going to be recorded, and we are going to share the recording with you afterwards. Kindly use the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen. Should you have any question, post your question there throughout the session. We have a panel that will be addressing all these questions in the course of the webinar. To move on, we have quite an interesting agenda ahead of us. And like we mentioned on our social media and publicity content, is that today we are going to be discussing about mainly CV writing and cover letters, as well as interview skills. So within this particular agenda, we'll be looking at how do you write your cover letters and also your CVs such that they put you way above your head, your peers, types of selections nowadays, or how recruiters are going about selecting candidates, the kind of documentation that you should bring should you be invited for an interview, various interviewing platforms. You are aware that a lot of things have changed. Interviews are now moving to digital. We still have physical interviews. What are these interviewing platforms that are enforced today? Again, skills that recruiters mainly look out for. And lastly, we will wind up with personal branding. And to begin us today, I'd like to welcome Damaris Rilech. Damaris Rilech is KPMG East Africa's Associate Director in charge of people performance and culture. She basically heads our human resource function, and she has a wealth of experience in talent acquisition, recruitment, and people management. Without much further ado, welcome Damaris, and give us your opening remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David, and good afternoon to all our participants this afternoon. Thank you very much for participating in this very, very useful session where you get an opportunity to get tips on really what it is you need to do and how it is that you need to prepare when you participate in job interviews. And we will definitely be looking at an end-to-end process when it comes to the presentations that you will get from my colleagues, Jackie and Julie. So like David alluded, a lot has shifted in the talent acquisition space because there is serious competition for talent in the market. Skill sets have changed. The COVID pandemic has shifted a lot of things. For instance, over the last 2 years, at KPMG East Africa, we've predominantly worked, most of us have worked from the houses, but as the HR team, we have continued to do our interviews and all other assessments. And of course, as you would imagine, then we are doing that virtually, and we have got to pay a lot more attention to what we are observing and what we are assessing during those virtual sessions. We do appreciate that the world is opening up now, and so a number of organizations are actually doing a hybrid, and so you may find yourself being called for an interview either virtually, and some of the sessions might be done physically. There will also be, when you finally get the job, how do you then get to be integrated into the firm? But even as you think about getting to the point of preparing for the interviews, we will be looking for different skill sets or additional, let me say more different and additional. And the reason being that what the pandemic and also where the business has gone has shifted in terms of the skill sets that are required. You will find today, for instance, that while previously an accountant would have been possibly just focusing on BCom and maybe an accounting professional course, today we are also asking ourselves, how easily does that person adapt? How emotionally intelligent is this person? And so to be able to assess such things, we will have different tools, different assessment tools and processes and tasks that will help us pick all these things. In an organization today, culture is also very, very critical. It is a key pillar in achieving any organizational strategy, also in attracting the right talent that you're looking for. And so we also will be looking at what is a culture fit and paying a lot of attention to that. What are our values versus what are yours, and how do you then fit into our organization? With the opening up of the marketplace now, you find that the talent pool has even widened, because while previously there was restrictions from a physical perspective, with technology now, a lot of organizations are able to recruit and onboard talent that is in various diverse physical locations. And what that has meant that a job that would possibly have been restricted to a very, very small area physically or geographical area is now open to a wider pool. But of course, even from an organization's perspective, we also have a responsibility to ensure that when we onboard you or when we recruit you, we can align to your own career objectives, because it's not, I think it is very important that when you apply to join any organization, you are first very, very clear what is it you're looking for, so that you don't apply just because you want a job, you get in there, and finally, you're like, this is not what I was really looking for. So it is important right from the beginning to have a very clear idea on what is your career objective, what is your season. For you guys, you're right at the entry point of your careers. And so what you're looking for in a career is totally different from somebody who's possibly in their mid-30s, in their 50s. The kind of thing that you're looking for that particular season in your life is very different. And those are all key considerations and will be things that the interviewing panel will be looking out for, to ensure that that we also actually going to align to what is your particular objective, career objective and plan. So I really want to welcome all of you. I think you have done a great thing to yourselves by participating in this activity. At KPMG East Africa, we believe in thought leadership, and especially because our business is about knowledge. Our business is about our people, and so we invest very, very heavily in ensuring we get the right people on board. And part of this is just to give you skills and tips that would help you when you're finally looking for opportunities, and so that you position yourself and you leverage these skills to put yourself in the jobs that are out here in the market. So thank you very much. And I do hope that at the end of this session, you will have taken home quite a number of insights from the sessions by Jackie and Julie. Otherwise, thank you very much. I want to hand it back to you, David.
Thank you, Damaris, for those insightful remarks. Our next speaker is Julie Mureithi, who is a recruitment consultant with KPMG East Africa. Julie has also done a lot of recruitment work, and therefore she's got a lot of experience in recruitment and talent acquisition. So welcome, Julie, and share with us your insights.
All right, thank you so much, David, for that introduction. And once again, welcome to the platform and to this discussion. Everybody who is on this call, thank you for taking the time. I'll just share my screen. Just give me a minute. I share my presentation for today. And David, you can confirm if you're able to see it.
Yes, we can view your screen, Julie.
All right, great. Thank you so much. And so I just want to cover two areas that are important for us who are on the call, especially as possible, recent graduates and those who are looking to graduate and looking to get into the job market. So I'll be looking at what you need to do, and the considerations that you need to make before you get into the room, before you get a discussion with your potential employers. Yeah, so we'll be looking at the considerations you need to make when it comes to cover letters and CVs, because they do play a big part in what you do. So just moving on, we'll begin with cover letters. So these are the tips that we, as KPMG, advise you, to look into and to put into practice and to implement as you do your documentation. As Damaris has mentioned, we are currently working, there are a lot of considerations in the working setup. There's a virtual reality, there are those ones who are working from home, hybrid setups. So, all these will come into play. As you consider making applications to KPMG, these are some of the things that you need to put into place. So when you write your cover letters, it's important that firstly you make sure that you've used proper grammar and formatting. We come across a lot of cover letters that have short forms that are used, and basically reflecting the way we speak. The way we speak may be informal, we may use colloquial language, but the cover letters need to reflect a professional outlook. They need to demonstrate proper sentences, and they may look like small things, but you sell yourself first from the documentation that we see. When we open your application, whether your cover letter is on attachment or it's on the email body, you have a summary of a bit of introduction about yourself on the email body with a cover letter that's attached. What we see, gives us a picture of who you are, okay? So it's important that you demonstrate yourself as a professional, as a potential possible candidate who is able to be professional in the workplace. And that's considering the kind of work that we do. We work a lot with clients. We have a lot of client engagements, and the brand that we represent, is a professional outlook. So what you put into your cover letters is extremely important. So use proper grammar, use proper formatting, dot all the I's, cross the T's, make sure there's alignment in your documentation, make sure you've done spell checks. And while they may seem like small things, they are extremely, extremely important, because then you might be crossed out of, consideration just because of these. Make sure you use proper formatting in terms of the size of font. You're not using too big, too big sizes in terms of fonts. You're using the right fonts. So make sure that when you look at your documentation, you've used proper grammar and proper formatting. And at the same time, for every role that you would apply for, right, make sure that you customize your cover letters to the role. And this is important because you want to reflect capability for each role that you're applying for. Each role has different requirements, different skills, and what I mean is you may not cut across too many jobs based on your skill sets, based on your experience. Obviously you have those roles that you have limited yourself to, that you're capable of doing, but you want to make sure that you're reflecting for each role the requirements that are, that are demonstrated or that are brought out in each role that you have applied to. So customize your cover letter. Don't send a generic cover letter. Make sure that you align your cover letter to each role. And you're going to speak a little bit more about that shortly. Keep it to a single page, because the details that you will put in your cover letter, should be brief. It's an introduction about yourself, and then, a bit of explanation about how you fit into that role based on your education that you have had, based on the studies that you have undergone, based on your life experiences, that you have had in terms of different engagements within your life, whether it's within clubs or within, different settings that you have been able to apply yourself, or if you've had an opportunity for internship, so after that, just expressing, interest in an interview. So it's a short, you want to keep it short. You don't want it to go to more than one page, and so in terms of formatting, you want to give an intro, You know, you want to talk about why you're skilled or why you feel you're competent for the job that you're applying for. And then a brief summary just to state that you're looking forward to an interview. And these are the things that you'll be bringing on board. So one page should be enough for a cover letter. And at the same time, it's important that you indicate what position you're applying for. So I'd like to believe that for many of us who possibly have applied for a couple of jobs, maybe you've just finished campus, you finished university, or you're applying for internship, you know, you made some letters, you wrote some letters, or you've seen some job applications or some job adverts where you could make applications. And sometimes you see recruiters or companies saying at the header, you know, this is what you should indicate on the header. And most of the times it would be the job title. You know, that makes it easy for us as recruiters. When we open your application, we're able to see what specifically you're applying for. So within the header or the title of your cover letter, it's important that you indicate what it is that you are applying for. You know, it should be very clear. And maybe not just on the cover letter. A lot of times nowadays, we've moved into online world, you know, you send your applications through email. So put in your header or in your subject, the job title that you're applying for, okay? If it's a HR job, indicate that it's human resource officer application. You know, if it's a data analyst, indicate it's a data analyst application. So make sure that you indicate what job that you're applying for. And within your cover letter, it's also important that you express excitement. And that is something that we are able to pick as we read through your documentation, you know, using words such as I'm enthusiastic about, you know, I'm excited to apply for this position because of, you know, I am passionate. Growing up, I was passionate about data. I was passionate about engaging with people. I was passionate about undertaking sales. You know, those are words that bring out excitement and that demonstrate interest in both the job and in, you know, that show interest in working in, you know, in the work that you're applying for. So make sure to express excitement, passion, you know, words such as I'm keen to do 1, 2, 3, 4. I would be eager to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, as you talk about your experiences and as you look to relate those to the job that you're applying for. So we are able to read that just from the cover letters that you write. Additionally, it's important that you use keywords, and that is why we talked about customizing your cover letter to each role. This is where it really plays big, you know, it really plays huge and where it really counts. Keywords are essentially every job would have its specific requirements, whether it's on education or the words, you know, that are brought out in the responsibilities, you know. So for example, you know, the job will require data entry. So data entry is a keyword, you know. The role would require some analysis of 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a keyword, you know. When you talk about maybe, you know, marketing, you talk about sales. So look for those very specific words that are brought about by the job and make sure that you're demonstrating them in your cover letter and how you have been able to actually play out that. Have you ever undertaken data analysis? Whether it's in a club in school, you know, in campus, you know, did you ever undertake that, or in a specific engagement or society that you're in, you know, in your different setups? So bring out those keywords, you know, as you express how you are aligned to the role. Those are extremely important. And as we continue this presentation, you'll also see how else you can be able to bring them to practice. So explain why you're qualified for the job. We talk about demonstrable experience, all right? And I know for many recent graduates or for many candidates who are looking to graduate, I think one of the challenges that you face is many employers are looking for experience. But as KPMG, we are getting into the graduate recruitment program where we'll be taking recent graduates, you know, into the job market. And so previous experience may not necessarily count, you know. Internship does count, but even if you've not gone through internship, whatever experiences that you have had in your different setups, it's important that you're able to demonstrate them because you already have experiences. You know, were you a leader in a club? You know, did you coordinate a certain activity, you know, in a different setting, wherever it is that you've been? So those experiences still count. And if it's internship, that's the experience that you've had. How are you able to relate that into the role that you are applying for? So experience here does not necessarily mean work experience. It could also mean experience in the different setups that you have had throughout your schooling and throughout your life that have enabled you to build skills that are relevant to the workplace. You know, skills such as leadership, skills such as collaboration, And very specific skills like, you know, analysis or accounting, maybe they're, or even to do with data, you know, I'm sure you get what I mean. You should be able to relate these to demonstrate how you're qualified for the job. So be able to tell a little bit of your story within your letters of your cover letters, just to show that you're capable to do the job. And here what we're saying is it doesn't have to be work experience. If you don't have it, you can start with the experiences that you have. All right. And we've talked about being able to connect your experiences to the company's needs. It's exactly that, from your story and from your life journey so far as it is. And then state the accomplishments that you have linked to the job. Did you manage to solve a problem? You know, as you're talking about the experiences that you've had, you did some data entry. What did that solve? You know, did you do some mentorship and coaching? What were the results of that? So be able to quantify that, you know, stating that, you know, you did XYZ and this was the results. All right. So be able to bring that out in your cover letter. Finally, please list your contact details. You know, make sure you list your number and your email on the cover letter. Much as it will be on the CV, it's important that you list it as well on the cover letter. So those are just some summary points. When we look at cover letters in a snapshot, that's what we look to see. All right. So moving on to CVs, and within this presentation, I've also included LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is becoming huge, and I'm sure you've heard about it. And I'd like to believe that many of us are active on social media. So I'm going to talk about how LinkedIn, you know, comes into play. So firstly, it's important that within your CV that it's ATS compliant. Now, what is ATS? ATS within HR terms is Applicant Tracking System. All right, that's what it stands for. And these are basically tools, these are basically softwares for recruitment that aid in recruitment. So essentially what that means is once your CV goes through an ATS, yeah, filtering or shortlisting is done by the ATS. And so the ATS looks for certain things so that you're shortlisted. And those are the things that I want to mention, all right? And so KPMG is not different from that. These are just pointers that would help you stand out or give you a better chance to, you know, have a discussion for the role that you're interested in. So keywords are important. So the JD or the advert that you find, those keywords, make sure your CV has those keywords. And that's why it's important, we'll talk about this, to make sure that your CV is aligned to each role that you apply for. Just tweaking and making sure that the keywords that you're applying for are reflected. All right. So if you're in human resources, there are certain keywords in human resources. So for example, recruitment. All right. So for example, shortlisting. All right. So, you know, if you're in administration, there will be that, there will be the keywords. If you're in accounting or finance, there will be those keywords, you know, analysis, you know, accounting, ledgers, those kind of things. Make sure they are reflected in your CV, because the ATS will pick that. And that really plays a big role in making sure that you get your foot through the door. At the same time, use of LinkedIn is important. And why is LinkedIn important? LinkedIn is important because, first of all, it creates confidence in you as a candidate. When recruiters see students, you know, who are just about to finish, they have a LinkedIn profile, they are well set up, they're able to tell a little bit of their story through LinkedIn, talk about their internships, talk about what they are able to achieve in the different clubs or groups that they are. It creates confidence in you as a potential candidate. At the same time, recruiters, managers, HR managers are on LinkedIn. Yeah, so this is the easiest, you know, this is a very good platform for you to be able to connect with them, all right? To be able to, you know, reach out to them. There are also a lot of groups that you could join that are aligned to your areas of interest in whatever line of study that you are. You could join those groups. You could start learning from the discussions that go on in those groups. So there's a lot of value and a lot of benefits that you would accrue from LinkedIn. And at the same time, when we look through your CV and you, as part of your contacts, you have your LinkedIn and, you know, your LinkedIn link therein, we actually go back and check, what does your LinkedIn profile look like? You know, it's of interest to us, especially for new joiners. So make sure you are able to relate ATS, you know, you're able to have a LinkedIn profile as well. Keep your CV short, you know. At this level, your CV really should not be more than two pages at most. And at the same time, if you have it as one page, just make sure that it has all the details that are required. Okay, and we're going to talk about that in the CV structure. And once again, formatting. making sure that you dot the I's, cross the T's. It's also important that your CV matches that, all right? So in terms of CV structure, what do we look for? Contacts. How are we going to reach you? There are CVs we've opened and we are not able to contact you. You know, somebody erroneously that maybe doesn't go through, or they forgot to put a number, you know, so it's important that your contacts are there, they are visible, all right? And we've also had candidates who've put their number, but for some reason they were unreachable because of where they come from, because of where they live, maybe they've traveled. Consider putting an alternative number, you know, and you can put there maybe your brother or your sister, somebody trusted, so that when we are not able to find you, we can find this person who will look for you and tell you, hey, KPMG is looking for you. Please reach out back to them through this number. So it's important not to miss out on opportunities because you could not be contacted. Now have a header summary so that we know who you are. You know, so a header summary for at this point in time can be accountant. It could be as basic as that. That's how you identify yourself. It could be data analyst. That's how you identify yourself. You know, so it could be data analyst and something else, you know, based on your education, based on other professional qualifications that you've been able to get. So please add that onto your CV, you know, just as part of a header. Indicate your skills. What are you good at? And here we talk about demonstrable skills, that should you get your foot through the door, should you have a discussion, you're able to demonstrate how you are able to do that. So it's not just having a skill, it's how are you able to do that, all right, in terms of your skills. So you say you're good in data analysis. Give us an example when you've been able to perform data analysis. So be ready to answer that question. And sometimes the skills that you list there, we can also be able to see them through the responsibilities that you put there, or through, you know, some of the activity that you've been involved in through various setups that you've been in. Make sure to list your education. The interesting thing is sometimes we've met with graduates who have not put in their recent qualifications, and sometimes maybe their professional certifications. Maybe there's something ongoing, you know, put it there. Maybe you've just registered for something, put it there. Make sure we can see all that, all right? So especially, and especially when this is going to help out in the corporate world, you know, make sure you put it in. And sometimes you may feel that maybe it's not related to the role. So maybe you're applying for an accountant role, and you're also good in data analytics. Yeah, so you decide, I'm only going to put the accounting qualifications. Why would you leave out the data analytics? Put them there, because you never know in the world that you're going in, you know, the way we are heading, that would also count, and you never know the opportunities that it could open for you. So make sure you put in all your education qualifications and your professional qualifications, whether current or ongoing. Those are important. Professional experience is important. Make sure you list it and it's current. We find quite a number of mistakes. Somebody puts in wrong years, wrong months that they worked. Make sure that it's current, because it says something about you. So it's important. I think you're hearing it very loud and clear, that you've rechecked the information and it's accurate. It's important that you provide accurate and comprehensive information that is required. Indicate your interests, you know, because as KPMG, we look at you as an individual first. You know, before you come to work for KPMG, you have a life out there. There are certain interests that you have. You know, there are things that you do beyond work. There are things that you do beyond studies. What are those things? And when we have a discussion with you, those are the things we're going to ask you. So sometimes you find candidates struggling to talk about their interests. We want to know what it is that you do, because you have a life out there, all right? And some of these things actually contribute towards the skills that are required at work. They contribute towards collaboration. They contribute towards teamwork. They contribute towards leadership. You know, they build certain skills, certain competencies that are required at the workplace. So it's important that you also list interests. And if you're a bookworm, you know, it's okay, you love reading, it's fine, but it's important that you find other activities that you can engage in that will also build certain traits, because we want wholesome individuals, you know, not who are just interested in schoolwork, you know, or work. We want to have people who have a life beyond that, who are able to relate with people, and that you get through certain interests that you undertake. So please find interests if you don't have any. Don't be a couch potato, you just watch TV. Do things with other people, all right? And so if it's reading, make sure you can demonstrate what it is that you read. Once again, demonstrable. You should be able to demonstrate everything that you put in your documents. Include your references. It would be good to put your references because, and when you talk about references, we don't talk about friends. At this point in time, you can consider your lecturers. Those would be references because they can talk about, what it was, your character at campus, but your friend, obviously your buddy would just, they'd be great, but it would be good to put references who can talk about you from a leader's perspective. So if you're in a religious setup, you can talk about that religious leader. What can they say about you? Your lecturers, if you're in an internship, the person that you are reporting to especially, have them as your referee, So those are the kind of references that we look at. And that's on the CV structure. So in terms of your LinkedIn, we've talked about the importance of LinkedIn. And I'd encourage you, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, please create one and make sure you put a picture. A profile picture is important. We want to see who you are. So for example, if you go and search for any one of us here on this call, you search for Damaris Lilech, who spoke previously, you search for me, Julie Morethi, Jacqueline Nobuka is going to be speaking after this. We are on LinkedIn. You will see our profile photos, you will see our experiences. And, a lot of times candidates find opportunities through LinkedIn because, like I said, hiring managers are on LinkedIn. So begin working on your LinkedIn profile now. Put your profile picture. Let's see who you are. Don't be afraid. And put a profile picture that inspires confidence, all right? That's what we work towards as KPMG, inspiring confidence. So we want a profile picture. We want to see a profile picture that inspires confidence, that even you look at and you think, that's a professional candidate. I would love to have a conversation with this candidate. Once again, keywords. So keywords are key. Keywords are key. So if you identify yourself as an accountant, keywords for accounting, make sure they are there. And you can pick up various entry jobs for accountant, various entry jobs for data analyst. What are those keywords that stand out that you can be able to demonstrate you can do? So put those keywords on your LinkedIn profile, all right? So job titles, if you've worked in internship before, talk about, you are interning in marketing. What was your job title? If you've worked, put in your job title, put in your experience. What specifically were you doing? When we've gone to LinkedIn, sometimes we don't get the details. Somebody just puts, you find a candidate has just put, they were interning or they were HR officer, but what were you doing? What were the duties? So take some time and detail them so that somebody can see what you're able to do, all right? Join groups. Like I mentioned, that's where you're going to start learning what, the discussions that go on in the corporate setting. Get some recommendations, because as you connect with people, as you're making connections with people that ask them for recommendations. So you've connected with your college lecturer, ask them to give you a recommendation. You connected to the person who supervised you in internship, ask them for recommendations. They really count towards getting your foot in the door. And so finally, I'm going to talk about additional considerations that you should make when you're making your application. Research is key. Research when you're applying for a job. Research about the company. And I know some people feel that it takes so much time. Yes, it does. But that's the only way you show yourself to be different from everybody else who is applying for that job. And the research that you undertake, you're going to bring it out in your cover letter. You're going to say, I've been reading that KPMG has been doing XYZ. I've been reading that the marketing team has been doing XYZ. You recently ran a CSR activity 1, 2, 3, and I'm passionate about 1, 2, 3. It shows that you have done, you understand. And as you do your research, you'll also understand, what the company stands for, what is its values, how do I align myself to those? So research is key. Research on the softer aspects of the values, what the company does, and of the job, what are the requirements? Do your research. If you know somebody there, talk to them to understand better. So do your research. Tailor your CV to the role. I think we've talked about that. We couldn't talk about it anymore. Make sure your CV is updated with all the relevant information so that you're not saying, oh, I forgot to include that. No, make sure it's updated. Align it to your LinkedIn profile such that when somebody reads your CV, it's almost the same thing that they're reading on LinkedIn, just that the CV has more information. And then ask for help. It never hurts to get a second opinion, somebody that you respect, if it's your college lecturer, if it's somebody that supervised you at your internship and you got a rapport, get their opinion. We also have you know, professionals who actually do this kind of work, you can also get their help. And as you connect with recruiters online, ask for their perspective, you know, just a check. So ask for help, ask somebody to review it and give you pointers on what would work best. So that's my presentation. And I'm going to hand it over to Jackie Omuka to proceed with today's presentation. Jackie, over to you.
Thank you, Julie. That was a great job done, Julie. Thank you for that. And I'm excited by the numbers that have been able to participate in this. Julie, I can still see your screen. Oh, great. I can now put up mine. If you can please confirm that you can be able to see my screen, Julie.
Still processing? Yes, the first step towards change. We can see it.
All right. Okay, thank you so much for that. Let me just get my presentation right. Okay, thank you so much. And it is a pleasure to have all of you this afternoon. My name is Jacqueline Omuka, and I head the Human Resource Business Advisory function in KPMG. I was formerly in talent acquisition. I have a great passion in developing talent. I have a great passion in sourcing and acquiring talent. And I get my satisfaction in my job by ensuring that I talk to as many people as possible to be able to guide them on how best they can be able to be marketable out there. And I guess that's the reason why we are here today. And without further ado, having gone through the CV writing and report and cover letter writing, I'm going to just give you a few tips on how you're going to prepare yourself for selection now that your cover letter is ready and your CV is ready. And I would like to start by a quote from Nathaniel Branden. And he says that the first step towards change is awareness. The second is acceptance. Now, I like sharing this with an audience of your level because at times we meet candidates that we feel could have done a better job if only they were aware of what is required for them. And excitedly enough, that is why we are here, to ensure that you are aware. Now, the second step is for us to ensure that as we take you through such forums, then you're able to review what you have been doing. You're able to learn and relearn. There might be a few areas where you might not be doing things the way they were supposed to be done. So this is the step where you accept that there are areas where you might need to improve on. There are areas where you might need to refine more so that you can be more marketable out there. So we thank you, we congratulate you for just taking time to be in this forum. Now, before I take you through the selection types, I would like to take you through the current trends in talent acquisition, just so that we are aware that how talent acquisition is carried out at the moment is not what was there before. In fact, today in the morning when I woke up, I sat on my bed thinking and reflecting on what I'm going to talk about today. And I actually started laughing because I reflected on my own experiences. I finished campus quite a while ago. And I remember at that point in time, things were not as digital as they were right now. So I remembered that in most of my applications, I actually had to do my applications on hard copy, actually written for some of them, because some organizations would require that you actually write the cover letter yourself. And most of them you would have to drop the application letter. If not dropping, then you would use a post office box. We never used emails at all. And it occurred to me that things have really changed. And especially since COVID hit us, we have actually experienced a 360-degree turnaround on talent acquisition, where we are recruiting candidates from scratch digitally in terms of offering opportunities for them to apply online, for them to be interviewed online. I'm sure some of you have been able to meet us through the various interviews we've been able to hold. And we have actually given and negotiated offers digitally, and we have inducted people digitally. So things are changing. And we need to be aware of the emergence of digital and virtual solutions. And the reason why I'm saying this is because you will realize that in more organizations than before, you will be called for interviews where you'll hold the interviews virtually. So I'll shortly just give you tips on how you're going to manage that. You have also noted that there's a lot of adoption of AI and robotics, that is artificial intelligence and robotics. As Julie mentioned, your CV must be ATS ready. And the reason why it has to be ATS ready, you might find platforms where you're actually having a chat with a chat box. Yeah, with a chatbot, which is more or less a robot. So you need to be aware of such trends and be very ready to be able to answer specific questions that you might be asked at the course of you filling in your applicant tracking system. There's also an urgent need to reskill to work with machines. We've experienced quite a number of candidates telling us, you have sent us a Teams link. I do not know how to use Teams. I do not know how to use Zoom. And this is your time to just check on your skills where technology is concerned so that you can be able to be updated. Now, there's also more pressure to multi-skill. We must accept the fact that the world is changing and more jobs are actually being turned digitally. More jobs are taken up by technology. And so it is important for us to just look deep into our careers and try and find out what more can I do over and above what I have done? What can I do that will complement what I'm already doing? And that takes me to the next point of career redesigning. We will accept the fact that some of the careers are no longer there. We are seeing, for example, banks. We used to queue up in banks to deposit and withdraw our money. That is no longer happening. And if it is happening, it is on such a lower scale. And so the question is, the people who are cashiers and bank tellers, what else can they do in terms of their careers? And we can talk about so many careers, so on and so forth. Now, we are also going to a place where we have predictive talent acquisition. If you take note of my very last slide, I'm going to talk about the future skills that we are focusing would be high end in the future. And so as talent acquisition specialists, we are looking out to just look at the trends of what is happening in the market, what is happening in the world, and be able to focus on what skills would we require. Do I need to start thinking of people who would be able to service the robots that we will be having? Because we will definitely be having robots. So those are the kind of questions we are asking ourselves. Then there is disruption in learning trends. Because we are coming up with new technologies every day, then the learning trends keep improving and keep changing. So we need to be aware of the trends that are happening right now, so that even as you prepare your CV, as you apply to the different organizations, then you are aware of what is expected of you from that organization. Now, I'll go to the types of selection. And I will speak through each one of them. So number one, we have the aptitude tests. I know for those of you who have participated in our graduate recruitment program or internship for that matter, you have had a chance of going through an aptitude test, which basically tests your skills in different areas, sometimes depending on the function that you are applying for, or your technical skills, then the aptitude test will be skewed towards your technical skills. On group assessments, again, we have quite a number of organizations that are now taking up group assessments. And this is where a group of people who have applied for a specific job are put together in a room where they discuss on a topical area. Now, the topic can either be a general topic discussion, or it can be specific to the job that you are applying for. So that could vary. And my next slide will just give you tips on how to manage and participate in group assessments. Then we have another selection type where you can be given a case study and you're given a timeline where you need to submit the case study. This mostly happens in experienced hires and people who have worked for a while, but that does not mean that candidates at your level who are graduates and have just finalized with your university, it doesn't mean that you cannot be given a case study. So always be prepared that you might be given a case study, which might also be very general and an assessment that would be able to, that the recruiters would be able to test a few skills from you. Then we have practical assessments. For those of you who are in very technical and specialized areas, you may be given practical assessments to undertake so that they can be able to test your skills in the areas that you are applying for. Then you might also be told to present. You might, and this can happen in two ways. Number one, you can be given a topic for you to prepare and present. The other one is that you can be asked to choose your own topic that you will present. And this can come in two ways. You can actually be told to present impromptu during an interview, or you can be given time to prepare for the presentation. So always be ready for that, and I'll give you tips on how you can prepare for that. And finally, we have the panel interview that we are all very familiar with, where you meet a number of people from the organization you have applied for, so that you can be able to talk about your skills and your capabilities in the job that you have applied for. Now, how do you prepare for the different selection stages? Where written assessments are concerned, that is case studies, the ATS systems that Julie has alluded to, and the aptitude test and so on and so forth. If they are giving you a timeline of which you need to finalize the written assessment, then please opt for a convenient time. There are those organizations that would tell you a specific time that you are going to take up that assessment. There are those organizations that will give you a timeline. For example, you might be given 2 days to be able to submit a case study, or 1 week to be able to submit an applicant tracking detail, or 1 or 2 days for you to take up an aptitude test. So it is up to you to choose at what time within the period given that you're going to take up the test. But there are those organizations that will tell you on Friday at 9 a.m., you are set to take up a case study, and so that would be specifically for that time. So if you're given an option to choose your time, please opt for a convenient time where you know you're not going to have distractions. You know that if you're going to be doing it virtually, then your connection is going to be stronger, and so on and so forth. It is very important to read instructions. Most of us from time to time are not able to be selected just because we were not able to follow instructions. If you are told, please fill in this application tracking with capital letters, please ensure that you have done that. Read each and every question clearly so that you can be able to know what exactly you're going to be responding to. Now, I must mention that some ATS systems have been set in a way that if you are to put in, like for example, if you are to put in your national identification number, then they have actually set it up that you cannot put in letters. You cannot type in letters. So you'll always know that there's something you're doing that is not right. But there are those applicant tracking systems that will not guide you on what exactly you're supposed to do, but you will be expected to read the instructions that you will be given. Now, if you don't read the instructions, then you're bound not to be selected at that particular point. Now, stick to the time that is provided, whether it is a case study, an aptitude test. And the reason is because we have two types of aptitude tests. By that, I mean the setup. Now, there are those aptitude tests that would be left open, but the recruiters at the back end would be able to know how much time you took to be able to complete the aptitude test. Now, there are those tests that will be specifically timed. Every question will be timed, and if you take so much time before you respond, then it goes to the next question. Now, if you take more time than what was required for the aptitude test, you're actually locked out. That definitely means that you are immediately disqualified. So make sure that you stick to the time provided. Now, always indicate your name. Make sure that you have indicated your name as they appear in your identification details and all other documents that you might have. I will not belabor the point on checking on your spellings. Just make sure that you're careful that your spellings are correct. Be very structured, especially where case studies are concerned, so that the evaluator of your case study or your written assessment can be able to find an easier time to get your points very quickly. On group assessments are actually meant to pick out soft skills that you have, and mostly they pick out your ability to be able to relate in a team and with people. So do not attend a group assessment and keep quiet. We have actually evidenced candidates who have participated in a 45-minute group assessment and they have said nothing. Now, unfortunately for you, if you have group members who will not give you an opportunity to speak, then you will definitely be disqualified. So please try as much as possible to participate actively. And participating actively doesn't mean that you are over-aggressive, because at times it might not work out well for you if you're over-aggressive in a team. It would mean that you don't work well with people. So try as much as possible to measure how much you will be able to participate and how much you're going to have other team members participate. Now, listen to team members. If one person has started talking, and maybe you were all talking at the same time, be kind enough to let the other person speak first, then take it up. It actually tells so much about your listening skills and how well you are able to accommodate your group members. Now, be prepared to meet stronger personalities than you are. Now, sometimes candidates feel that it is the people who are extroverted that would have an added advantage in a group assessment. And I'd like to point out that that is not the case. We take into consideration that people have different personalities, and we appreciate that. We appreciate that we have introverts in a group, but being introverted doesn't mean that you cannot speak, because introverts also speak, and being extroverted doesn't mean that you are over-aggressive, that you're not able to allow other people to speak in a group. That might work against you. So in the event that you are an extroverted person, try as much as possible to measure how much you're going to participate in a group, because it might border to not being a good team member. Try as much as possible to take up roles in a group. Not everyone can take up a role in a group, but where it is possible, please take up a role, even if it's timekeeping, even if you will note down the notes, if you're going to be the moderator of the team, the leader, please ensure that you have taken up a role. It says so much about your leadership skill at your level. In as much as possible, be audible, because you have a number of panelists that are trying their level best to listen to you and to ensure that you actually get to the next level. Now, if you're not audible, it means that you lose your panelists, and you might lose points just because of that. Not because you did not pass out points that were relevant, but because the panel was not able to hear what you are saying. Where you have been given a presentation as one of the selection stages, where possible, unless otherwise advised not to have slides, please have slides. Even if it is a 5-minute presentation, try as much as possible to have slides that will guide you and even the panel on what you're talking about. Having slides actually makes you keep to the time and keep to the agenda that you have set yourself to have. Now, practice as much as possible, and make sure that you are brief and precise. Keep to the time that you have been given. Be as confident as you can. be audible, be consistent with whatever you're presenting, and stick to the guided time. Now, when we come to the panel interview, as usual, keep time. Now, one of the very shocking observations that we are continuously experiencing with this generation, or rather with your generation, is that most candidates don't keep time. For your information, if you have been slated to take up an interview at 9, it doesn't mean that you come in at 9. Please try as much as possible to come in earlier. If it is a virtual interview, please try as much as possible to log in earlier so that you can be able to relax, put your butterflies to rest, and be ready for the interview. So always keep time, be attentive so that you're able to respond to the questions that are posed to you correctly. Listen carefully so that you're able to respond to questions as they have been asked, and try to get the panelist's name. It's always exciting for us when you're able to call us by name and say, Julie, I take note of the question you have posed, and this is my response. Yeah, always have a notebook. We take into consideration that you're a human being. There are some panelists that will ask you back-to-back questions you might not be able to remember. So try as much as possible to have a notebook where you can note down a few pointers that you feel you may forget, or a few notes that you may be picking out from the interview that you can ask at the end of the interview. And then be ready to demonstrate your skills and competencies. I think Julie has mentioned that. Now, always remember to understand the job description of the job that you're applying for. As Julie has mentioned, do not use the same CV for all the jobs that you're applying for. Always try as much as possible to understand what the job is requiring from you so that you can be able to customize your CV, or rather to put up points that will be will sell your competencies to the recruiter. Understand the job description. From time to time, we get candidates who are applying for a job that is way below their level or way above their level, probably because they did not understand and they did not read the job profile as they should have. Now, always be ready to explain gaps in your CV. Again, I will allude to the fact that we are human beings. Things happen in your life, and we know at times there are people who might not have jobs within a certain period of time. It is okay to have gaps in your CV. What we are saying, or what we are advising, is be ready to explain that between 2020 and 2021, I was not working because this is what was happening in my life, or I was not working because I did not get an opportunity to be able to work. Always be ready to explain gaps. If there was a gap in your academic cycle, also be ready to explain maybe why it took longer for you to complete your degree program or your professional program, just so that the panelists can understand where you're coming from. Now, we have also experienced quite a number of candidates who indicate referees who do not know them. And I can tell you for a fact, it is a sorry state when we call someone you have indicated in your CV and they state that they do not know you. These cases happen, and what we are advising is that the moment you prepare your CV and you have indicated someone as your referee, please have the positive mind that I am actually going to be called for this job, and my referee might be called before I am called. So always make sure to alert your referee that I have sent my CV to this organization, and I would like to alert you that I have indicated you as my referee. This is the position that I have applied for. Please put in a word for me in the event that they call. That way, your referee is ready to pick out any calls that they would be expecting from your potential employer. Now, always know your worth based on your capabilities. Do not undersell yourself. Ensure that you have put in your best competencies within your CV. Unfortunately, some candidates do not sell themselves quite strongly. You may have done quite tremendous activities within your academic life, within your life, and you do not indicate that in your CV. At your level as graduate recruits or rather people who are looking for jobs, always take the advantage of indicating any achievement that you have been able to have in your lifetime. You, at your level, you might think that it doesn't make sense. You might think that it is not relevant, but it might add value to your CV as you are being selected. Now, the required documents over and above the updated CV that Julie has talked about, you will require to have your academic certificates ready. Now, where you are requested to have your academic certificates ready, please ensure that you submit the original certificates. There are some organizations that will ask you to have those certificates certified. Ensure that you do that as well. In your CV, I'm sure most of you are always indicating the curricular activities that you have taken part in. Please ensure that you have certification letters, invitation letters, or anything that would actually evidence that you were part of the curriculum activities that you're talking about. Have your recommendation letters ready. You do not have to wait until you get a job for you to get a recommendation letter, unless the prospective employer asks for an updated letter. If you have just completed your university life, please ask for a recommendation letter as early as now, so that when an opportunity comes up, you already have the documents that you require. Now, always be ready with your personal identification details. And by that, we mean your national identity documents for those countries that have that. I am aware that we have a number of candidates that are not necessarily from the East Africa region. So if you're not from the East Africa region, and in the event your country does not have a national identity card, please ensure that you use whatever that you use within your specific countries. You can also use your passport where you have a passport. It will give an added advantage where you present a passport in the event that the job that you're applying for will require for you to be traveling. Now, have your statutory documents ready. In the event that you are not a citizen of the country where you're applying for, try as much as possible to ask queries to do with your work permits and any documents that will enable you work in that specific country. These are just examples of some of the documentation that you will be required to have. But upon successful interviews, we have also noted that quite a number of candidates, and especially candidates who have just graduated, at that point in time, they do not have their national health insurance numbers. They do not have their national social security numbers. It is important to take them now. Do not wait until you are employed for you to have those. Try as much as possible to be ready with those, because you might get an employer who wants you, who interviews you today, to join their organization tomorrow. You just want to have those documents ready with you. If you have been working before, ensure that you have all your updated payslips that have been verified. Now, you also need to have copies of your credentials in your names. In the event that you have written books, you have also done research copies. You can also add in links of any website pages that you have. And you can also provide samples. For example, if you wrote a book, then provide a sample for that. Sorry, my slides skipped a bit. Now, how do you prepare yourself for an interview? Now that you have been called for the interview, your CV is ready, your cover letter has been looked into, you are already aware of the selection processes that you're going to go through. How do you get ready to meet your employer? Now, the first step we will advise you to do is to check out whether you know anyone in that organization that would give you more insights on what the organization is all about. Check out their media presence. What does the media say about them? What is the latest news about them in the media? Who knows? It might be one of the questions that will be asked in your aptitude test or in any of your assessment tests. So try as much as possible to just check out on their media presence and what is in there for for your reference. Always look out in their websites to just get to understand what they are about, what they do. That is where you'll get their values, their purpose, and all the information that you might require that is publicly out there to be able to prepare yourself for the interview. Also, get to know what the organizations do. We have also met candidates who we pose the question of, what do you know about KPMG? And unfortunately, some candidates would not have done their research, and they unfortunately do not know anything about the firm. It is unfortunate when you attend an interview where you do not know what the organization is doing. Then get to know their values. What are their values? Do they align to yours? Is there something that you can learn from their values that would want you to actually join that organization? What corporate responsibilities do they sign up for? What do they do out there that can give you an added advantage in the event that you join the organization? What are their recent wins? These you can get from the media presence, the website that you will be referring to as well. Now, technology and talent acquisition. I previously said that I will talk about a few areas where you need to be alert, and especially because we are digital now. And I would like to just give you a sample channels used in interviews, and so that you can be prepared. If you have not been able to get in any interview that has used any of these channels, then from today on you can be able to be prepared for that. There are those interviews where you'll be called using a normal phone call. It can either be one person, or they can have a phone call that is a conference call. So be prepared. And that is where I always tell candidates, ensure that whatever tune or tone that you have for your ringtone aligns to your values or to the general standards of living. Some of us, unfortunately, have ringtones that are a total turnoff to recruiters. Some have ringtones that are actually abuses. It already tells a potential employer the kind of person you are. So be very careful of the kind of ringtones you have. If you are looking for a job, ensure that your phone is always within reach so that you can be able to respond to phone calls. Now, we normally use Zoom platform just as we are using right now. So if you have never interacted with Zoom, you can always download that application and try and walk through the application and see whatever that is in there that you can learn, so that in the event that you're called for an interview where they use Zoom, then you are well prepared. There are those organizations that will use Skype. There are those that will use Google Meet, and of course, Teams. For those of you who have participated in interviews in KPMG, then you have definitely interacted with Teams. Teams is very well known out there. So if you have not heard of an application called Microsoft Teams, you may want to download it and just get to understand the features in it, just in case you are invited for an interview that would require for you to use this. And of course, lastly is physical interviews, where you physically participate to meet the organization panel. Now, how do you prepare for a virtual interview? Number one is to ensure that you have tested the channels that you have been provided. If it is Zoom or Teams, make sure that you have downloaded it in good time. Make sure that you have tested the audio. You can even talk to one of your buddies to download it as well. And you can have a Teams call, you can have a Zoom call, so that they can ascertain that your audio is okay. They can also ascertain for you on your video quality. And video quality can be affected by so many things. Like, I'm sure for my case, I'm having hardware issue with my machine. So I'm aware that the lighting of my machine is not okay. Then you will also want to look at the privacy of the room where you're taking up the interview. And for your information, if you have been called for a virtual interview, try as much as possible to be alone in the room. Because the perception of the panelists, where you seem to be talking to someone else or to be distracted by someone else, is that someone else is helping you to give you answers in the interview session. And in any case, it's just a distraction. So try as much as possible to be alone in the room so that you can concentrate. Also, always look at the external distractions that might be there in the environment that you're in. You might be living in a place where there's a lot of noise. If that is the case, you might want to change your venue. There might be an activity that is happening where you are living. You might want to also be aware of that so that you can change your venue. Now, always check on your internet quality, which will always be guided by your bandwidth. Try as much as possible to have enough bandwidth for the time that has been given for you to participate in the interview. Also check on the lighting. Sometimes your video quality might be okay, but affected by the lighting of the room that you're in. So make sure that your lighting is okay so that we can be able to see your face. It's always an added advantage when the panelist is able to see you and is able to connect with you. Now look at the ambience that you're in. The other day I was giving an example of a situation where a candidate, I think, forgot where they were in. I think they were in campus, and we all understand how the campus cubicles are. So clothes were hung all over their background, and some of the clothing that were there were not those that you would really want to have them in public. It was a bit embarrassing because some people do not know how to have a background like the one I'm having. So if your ambience, if you're not able to change your ambience, try as much as possible to use the features that have been given in whatever platform that you're using to at least blur your background so that you can have a better ambience. Finally, ensure that you have branded yourself well. Unfortunately for us, I don't know why we have a feeling that because we are working from home, then we do not need to actually prepare ourselves for interviews. We have seen cases where candidates have come to interviews with what seemed like they just came out of bed. Yeah, so try as much as possible, even if it's a virtual interview, to be well branded. Just ensure that you are presentable to the team that you are talking to. Now, there are those interviews that they will not tell you whether you're going to be on video or not. So if you're not told, you better be prepared so that in the event that you're told, please be on video, then you're prepared to be on video. And same applies. The same case that applies for physical interviews, where you ensure that you have a suit and you're clean, your hair is well groomed. Please ensure that that also happens for virtual interviews. Now, what are the possible questions to be ready for? I think Julie had mentioned quite a number of them. I'll just brush very quickly through them. Please be ready to tell the panel who you are. And that should be over and above what we can see in your CV. Please always talk about your achievements. That is what Julie was alluding to. Show excitement with what you have been able to do. Be ready to explain what your strengths and weaknesses are. I will keep reminding us that we are human beings. Panelists understand that you are a human being. It actually does not work well for you when you're asked to describe what your weaknesses are, and you actually say that you do not have a weakness. There's no human being who does not have a weakness. So do not take it as a plus for you if you tell a panel that you do not have a weakness. Always understand yourself, get to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. If you're not sure, please talk to your friends, talk to your family members, your parents, ask them, what do you think I'm good at? What do you think I need to improve on, so that you can be able to know these aspects. Always be ready to be asked about your career aspiration. Yes, you have graduated. Yes, you are just about to graduate, but what do you want to be? Where do you want to work? Who do you want to be in the future? Be ready to be asked such questions. I've already talked about knowing the organization you're applying for, who you are over and above the academics that you have presented, and also talk about your areas of interest. Now, the interesting bit about your areas of interest is that sometimes you can be asked to demonstrate. Now, if you say that one of your hobbies is reading, and we ask you what is the last book that you read, and you're not even able to remember, it already tells us that you might not be telling us the truth. If you tell us that you're a football fan, and we ask you which is your your best team and you're not even able to tell us what your best football team is, then it tells us so much about the integrity that you have put in your CV. So always put your areas of interest and hobbies, but those that you know you can actually be able to evidence, and those that are honest, that you actually are honest with what you're saying. On the possible essential skills that are looked out for by organizations, communication skill is one of them. Please ensure that you have refined how you communicate to people, how you communicate to a team of people, and always ensure that you have been able to know and understand your audience. Because the way you're going to talk to your buddy, I'm sure is not the way you're going to talk to your parents, the way you're going to talk to your lecturers and your employer. Always get to understand how to communicate and at what level. Also refine your interpersonal skills. Be ready to be able to have problem-solving skills. And if you have problem-solving skills, or rather you are asked any question about a problem that you solve, then be ready to evidence that at such a time in my university life or in my internship, I faced this problem, this is how I handled it, this is what I learned, and this is what I'm doing differently. Now, also be ready to demonstrate that you are someone who can actually work with people. Be very self-aware. Like I have mentioned over more than enough, you are a human being. So it is okay to say that at times I have a high temper, but this is what I'm doing to be able to manage that. Be very self-aware so that the panelists can know what developmental programs they can put you in so that they can either refine the strengths that you have or bridge the gap on the weaknesses that you have. Always have drive. There are those candidates that have all it takes in their CV, but when they come to the interview room, they do not seem to be excited about having that discussion. They do not seem to be excited even as they answer questions. They do not seem to be, you know, in the moment. So always ensure that you have the drive, you have the energy in everything that you do. Then be a leader in your own standard. Never ever underestimate the fact that even if you have never held a leadership position where you are, at whatever level you are, never underestimate the fact that you are a leader. You are a leader in your own right. So try as much as possible to evidence and demonstrate what you have been able to lead in, even if it's a family function, even if it's a leader, a small role in church, you know, try and as much as possible to show how you can be able to lead other people where you are at. Now, as I conclude, these are the examples of the future skills that will be looked out for. And most of us are already experiencing some of these skills. Data analytics is one of them. And when I was thinking about data analytics, I thought about during my times, having computer skills was a big thing. I mean, not everyone was going to computers. We had what we were calling MS-DOS. For those of us, the very few of us who are in my generation, if you give an employer a certificate that you have done Microsoft Word, that was a big thing. And you are even an excellent candidate if you have Excel or PowerPoint. Unfortunately, at this point in time, that does not pass because everyone needs to have computer skills. That is where we are going with data analytics. If you have not been able to try as much as possible to get skills on data analytics, please do, because as we move to the digital world, we are going to use more data than anything else. So try as much as possible to refine your skills on data analytics. Be very agile. We are changing from every day. Things are changing. So be very agile. Have an adaptive thinking. If most of us had not adapted to the fact that COVID has changed so many things, then most probably we would not even have this forum online. But because we were able to adapt very fast and able to actually note that, wait a minute, we can actually take up this forum online, then we would be missing out a lot, and you will be missing out a lot as our potential employees. Then emotional intelligence, very important. social intelligence and building your social capital is very important, because as we move to the global world and global market, it is the social networks that you have that will enable you be more exposed to what is happening in the world, what is happening within your career, so that you can build yourself and develop yourself. Ensure that you have refined your technology use. And even as you refine your technology use in your very specific careers, try as much as possible to think on what you can be able to design using technology. Then you must have digital literacy. I think I started by saying that. That is where we are moving to. And ideation skills, where you're able to come up with concepts and ideas to be able to sell to different organizations for implementation and fruition. So these are just a few of the skills that we thought of. There's quite a number of them. You can always go online and just do your research and find out what other skills are coming up in your area of specialization, so that you can start getting prepared for that. Now, dress code. I can never belabor on the dress code. In as much as possible, be ready. Always be ready, and ensure that you have branded yourself ideally for a potential employer. Your personal branding and your outlook might break or make you. You might be the best candidate that we can have. You might be the best candidate that any panel can have, but how you have presented yourself may make you not get into the door. Yeah, so try as much as possible to be as official as you can get. And we are not saying that you must have suits for you to be presentable. You can be presentable even without putting on suits and all that, and you're still smart. So try as much as possible to just study the environment that you're being interviewed in, the employer that you're interviewing with, so that you get to know what is their culture, how do they dress, how do they present themselves, what category of industry are they in, and what do they represent out there. Because as a professional services firm, I'm expected to be very professional as I meet clients. Now, when you go to the arts industry, the media, and all that, you will find candidates who will come in jeans and t-shirt, and they will be okay. That is their industry. If your industry dictates that you present yourself in a certain manner, please be aware of that, so that you can be well presented. Now, finally, I would like to just remind you on what you will need to invest in as you prepare for selection and interviews. Please invest in time. Your time is very important. Ensure that you have taken time to look through your CV, you have taken time to read all the information that we have given you, your job description, the organization that you are going to work for, and you have also taken time to rest before the interview, so that you are well prepared. Brand yourself accordingly. I can never belabor that. Network as much as you can, so that you can be able to understand your career. Just as Julie mentioned, if you're not on LinkedIn, please join LinkedIn, connect with people who are in the same career as yourself. There are those people who have gone ahead of you and have done amazing things. So please ensure that you have followed them and get to know what are they doing, what is it that makes them tick, so that you can also refine yourself. Research as much as you can, and also prepare yourself for future skills, so that you can be more marketable out there. That is the end of my presentation. I'll take it back to Janet Mzuka in Tanzania to take us through the Q&A. Over to you, Janet.
Hi, thank you, Jacqueline and Julie. That was indeed very educative and enticing, I'm sure, for the participants, and I'm getting that looking at the questions they've been asking. So most of the questions have been answered as the presentations were going on. But to Julie, I would just like to pose some few questions that really came up most of the times from the participants. And these are questions around CV writing. And they just want to know if there's a standard font size that is required for CV, or if there's any special format that they should look out for when they're writing the CV.
Thank you so much for your question, Janet. Yeah, and that's one of the questions that we answered. So generally, the font times Arial Calibri would be what would be used essentially, and you can consider using font 10 to 12. So either of those three would work very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. And Jacqueline, talking about interviews, I think candidates and most of participants would like to know, particularly on aptitude tests. So they're asking what are the tips and tricks to go about passing an aptitude test, and like how they should approach aptitude tests. Yeah.
That's a very interesting question. Interesting because someone from my social networks called me yesterday to ask me of the same question. And I think I would allude to the same thing I told him. The trick to aptitude tests is to practice. There are so many platforms in the internet that can provide you the opportunity to practice aptitude tests. But please remember, aptitude tests are differently set depending on the organization. There are those aptitude tests that will be very, very specific to what you are being interviewed for. There are those that will be very general to test specific skills, for example, numerical literacy, logical thinking, creative thinking. So all I can tell candidates is just to practice as much as possible, and these platforms are provided in the internet. If you can and you are able to, there are those platforms that will give you more than what you can Google freely. There are those platforms that you will have to pay for you to take up aptitude tests. Please do if you are able to, so that you can be able to practice more. Now, where time is concerned, unfortunately, the best I can give is to ask candidates to ensure that they have read the questions very, very carefully and the instructions, just like as we said. If you are taking up an aptitude test that is timed by the question, for example, the person I was talking to yesterday was actually taking up an aptitude test today, and he has actually reported to me that the aptitude test was timed. So every question was, I think, 20 seconds. So what I had advised him to do, and please take note that this is not cast on stone, it might be different from for different aptitude tests. So what I told him to do is that there might be so many questions. So if you are very, very sure you do not have an answer to that question, please move. Please move, because if you take so much time in one question, you might end up not answering, half of those questions. So practice is the answer.
Thank you, Jackie. Guys, you heard it. Another question that I think was very tricky and people kept asking was, how do you respond to a question about salary? When employers ask, like, your salary expectation, how best can candidates respond to that?
Thanks, Janet, for that. So in terms of salary, it's important that you demonstrate research, right? We talked about research. So please research on the job that you're going to interview for. So is it a marketing officer? Is it a data analyst? And you get a lot of this information online just to get the bands. And if you know somebody who has a similar job or somebody who can be able to advise in that line, do your research on that. Get to know the approximate band of the salary that is paid at entry level or at whatever level based on the experience that they're looking for. So they will list it's 1 year experience or 2 years experience, or if you're not able to get for that specific job, get to know, just from the market in general, what are people paid with 1 year experience or with 2 years experience, or that range of company, that brand of company, what do they pay for entry jobs, So do your research. So when you asked about salary and you've done your research, it's also important to align your expectations to your research, because one of the questions that will come, we've had candidates who've come and mentioned, very high salaries, for example, and they are not able to justify how they came up with those figures. And there are also those ones who've mentioned very low salaries, so it's important to understand, have an approximate range. And the justification for you would be, I've done my research on kind of positions, and this is what is generally paid, so my expectation would be around that. That shows that you've done your research. and you're able to justify the figures that you've given. Additionally, so if you do, so I guess that's how I would go about it, and that's what we would recommend. So for candidates who are able to justify, it's much easier, and it shows that they have taken time, you know, to do their research. So research, and if you don't have the research, it's also important to consider what is comfortable for you. Yes, it's not just about wanting a big salary. It's what is comfortable for you, what will take care of, especially like for internships, you know, it may not necessarily be a salary, but what is comfortable for you to take care of transport and your food and your lunch, you know, just your basics, you know, so that whatever you indicate, maybe you can just indicate slightly higher than that. And it's also important that you are open to negotiate, you know, you don't want to look as inflexible. So you want to give a figure that if you negotiate, if it comes to XYZ, you know, you'll be comfortable. And in that case, you can consider giving a range, you know, you can give a range between X and Y, you know, so that's the room that can be played around. So those are the 3 considerations I would give.
Thank you, Julie. Another interesting question that came along was the question that people are saying everyone asks them when they attend an interview, and that's it, tell me about yourself. The participants would like to know like how long they should spend on that question and what really are the type of answers that interviewers are looking for when they ask them, tell me about yourself.
So I can take that so in terms of tell us about yourself. It's a pitch about you. Like we said, we look at you as KPMG, we look at you as an individual first, you know, so you can tell us about your family, you know, you can tell us about you're a firstborn out of a family of 3, you grew up in Murang'a County or in Busia County, and you went to 3 primary schools, you were involved in different clubs, you know, speaking club, etc., etc., in summary. So it should not be something that takes more than 3 to 5 minutes about yourself. And you've had an opportunity to intern in 3 organizations or in 2 organizations undertaking XYZ. You know, that's a brief summary about you. Your hobbies and your interests include reading. You've recently been reading a book by so-and-so, and this is what you're learning. You also recently watched a documentary that was so interesting, that was about 1, 2, 3, 4 things. And you love sports, you love to swim, and you do that on Saturdays just to keep fit and healthy. So general summary about you that gives us insight about who you are as a person, because you are an individual first before you become an employee. Yeah.
Thank you. We're real pressed for time, but of course our teams are still responding to the questions that came and that are still coming, and maybe we'll do just a summary of the questions that were asked and share with the candidates. But just one last question for presenters, and I think this was one, it's around KPMG, whether our graduate recruitment, if someone had applied before and they were not successful, whether they are automatically locked out from applying again. And I think this is tied up to another question that a person asked. If you go for an interview to a company and you're not successful, should you again apply for a job in that company if it comes, or just, you know, call it quits that?
All right, thank you. Thank you for that, Janet. So we have had applicants who have attended interviews more than once, and there are some who've been successful on subsequent interviews that they have attended. So as KPMG, you're not locked out for applying for interviews. But let me say, when it comes to graduate recruitment, in terms of the years of when you've cleared campus, that's usually very clear in the advertisement, right? So for example, if you had cleared graduate recruitment in 2019, we went through that phase, and this is just an example, in 2020. And, you know, so the criteria was candidates who finished, up to this year. You know, so when we do the next graduate recruitment, we'll have proceeded. You know, we may not necessarily be looking at the year that you closed. So for that graduate recruitment, then yes, you will be locked out because you may not meet the criteria of the year that you completed. But it doesn't stop you from applying for other jobs for experienced hires, right? So you see, for example, an accountant job that you've applied for and you meet the criteria, you meet the qualifications, apply, just apply for it, you know, and maybe you also have data analysis skills. Maybe you failed the accounting interview, but, you know, you've been working as a data analyst, you know, maybe after 2 years, and you're able to demonstrate that you actually meet the criteria. nothing stops you from applying. So all we're saying is, first of all, make sure you match the job advert, you match the requirements in terms of the responsibilities and the skills that are required and the education. So that's important, that you're aligned to the job, so please apply for that. And that, I would believe, would be similar to other organizations. You went for an interview, you didn't pass. You can always follow up through email to ask why you didn't pass that interview if you're really interested in working with that organization, hoping that they'd give you feedback. So at KPMG, go through the interview, on your own and see what questions would I not have answered well. Also remembering that it's a very competitive process. So the selection, a lot of times, is mainly on alignment to the job advert. So it's important that you prepare in that line. Yeah. And also about mindset. I believe we've spoken about mindset, confidence, just the other, how you demonstrate yourself, how you bring yourself to the interview, how you speak. So you can also do an analysis about yourself through the interview process and see what you can improve. And like we said, seek out for help. Have somebody else, listen to you, ask you questions, those kind of things, and be able to pick tips about yourself that you can improve. Yeah. So please apply for positions, even if you were locked out, as long as you meet the next job, apply for it and make sure you prepare for it well enough. Yeah.
Thank you, Julie and Jacqueline. I see we still have questions there, but we're a bit pressed for time. Participant, please continue looking out on the Q&A session. The KPMG team is still around and they will still be responding to your questions.
Has Janet frozen? Jackie, can you hear me? Or David? Yeah, Janet seems to have frozen and Jackie's on mute. So
yes, it appears that she's back.
I'm here. I was just handing back to David and telling the participants that they should still continue watching out the Q&A box as we would continue to respond to the rest of the questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Janet. Thank you for guiding us through the question and answer session. And I'm sure that our participants they have learned a lot. I would like also to thank Jacqueline Omuka and Julie Muriithi, who have taken us through comprehensive sessions on interview preparation, CV writing, and cover letters, and key tips on how to go about preparing for an interview to just make sure that you ace that job and you get it. Our objective is to make sure that we give you this information because we are a people-driven organization that is also thought leadership oriented, and we look forward to sharing this information with you. So we are just coming to the end of this presentation, and I'm happy the way people have participated, and I'm sure that you've really learned a lot. But before we close, I'd like to just appreciate the KPMG East Africa People Performance and Culture team for the work they have done in answering the question and also delivering this presentation. And also my team from the Marketing, Knowledge and Communication, who have really worked tirelessly to put this together, and really appreciate the input that you have given. Before I sign off, I'd like to just bring forward my colleague, Robert, to just make the closing remarks and conclude the session. So thank you so much and have yourself a great evening. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, David. Confirm you can hear me?
Yes, Robert, we can hear you, can see you. Go ahead.
All right. So as part of the closing remarks is to thank everyone that has attended. You can see the number of participants is quite impressive. I hope that you've learned quite some things and you implement it in your endeavors. On behalf of KPMG East Africa, we would like to wish you all the very best in your career journeys, in your respective career journeys, and in applications for jobs, either with KPMG or with any other employer out there. And also to give a big thanks to the team that organized this for their good work done. Be on the lookout for upcoming recruitments from KPMG East Africa, and especially with the graduate recruitment for this year. so that we're able to take part in that, as well as experience hire recruitment and other recruitment that we do on behalf of other companies. I would like to wish you a nice evening and all the best.